All right, here is my attic elevator build. This is the carriage. It's a little overbuilt, but basically it's 1/2 inch galvanized pipe, just iron pipe that you pick up at Home Depot. Those are 45-degree connectors. It's a little 3-way connector. This railing down here came from the electrical section, also of Home Depot, and it's got some brackets that you can just use to bolt it. So the whole thing is 29 inches wide by 52 inches long. I'm going to throw some plywood, just thin plywood, doesn't need much, and it's going to go right there. All right, here we are up in the attic. So obviously we're going to have to cut one of the trusses, which always makes me a little nervous because we got the attic stairs right here. You can see they cut out one, so this whole section I think is probably a little bit weaker. This beam right there is kind of taking the load, so my idea is I'm going to use the good beam here, cut out that beam. That is a bedroom, and there is a big, looks like 2 by maybe 16 or 18 inch beam underneath the floor, so I'm going to tie into that to strengthen it. So take out that beam right there, tie into it there, and then I'm going to put the electric motor kind of in a little carriage up here. So I've got to wire in and get some 120 volt off one of these lines. These go right into the bedroom, so it'll be easy to pick that up. Always good to consult a structural engineer. ChatGPT is what I used. This is a 23-foot span. So anytime you're cutting out, that's a 2 by 12 beam. Anytime you're cutting that out, make sure you're extra safe. You've got to back up on it, and you either talk to a structural engineer. I've seen a lot of people just cut holes in their attic and cut out beams and don't really think about what may happen. So it's important to take a look. So once we get that decked and get the beam taken out, we're going to start building the little arch for the motor. All right, there's the completed carriage. Just got a little, I think that's 15 by 32 plywood. It's pretty over-engineered. This thing weighs, I don't know, 40 pounds, probably a lot more than I need, but should hold up pretty nicely. All right, it's about time to cut a rafter. I'm going to be cutting that middle rafter, but first I'm going to reinforce it here and over there. You always want to reinforce it. Had some electric that was running right next to where the hole's going to be, so I had to move that. Added a plug for the hoist. You can see I kind of moved the electric over. Next step is I'm going to put some hurricane straps, a little extra support, and go ahead and cut the rafter out. Is it weird having another hole in your garage? Yeah, it is kind of weird. All right, that's where the elevator's going to go. All right, there's the hole. Not quite perfect, but that's all right. I can fix up the drywall. There's a ladder, and there's the carriage we're going to be putting in it. All right, getting a little closer. Framed out the opening. Did a lot of hurricane ties just on the good beams, just for safety. Corner braces, all that kind of good stuff. Marked off where I've got good beams, and I'm going to tie into this big girder on the side. All righty, beautiful people, here's where we're at. Last time we saw the hole. We've got the frame built up. This winch, it's upside down right now, is actually going to go on top of this. You know, I've seen the 4-post models where you've got pulleys, but I thought this is going to be a little bit of a better solution. Once I get it installed, I'll show you some of the challenges on arranging these garage drums, because it's a little tricky to get the spacing right. You got to have them just forward enough. And then once I actually get it installed, there's going to be some fine tuning on the sled, which you can kind of see down there, to make sure when it raises up, obviously it's going to shift a little left or right depending on where the wires are on these rolls. So I'll have to make some adjustments on these rolls and kind of move them depending on where it lands. So as it rolls down, it's going to float a little bit to the left, which is fine. And then when it comes up, as it comes up on the rollers, the goal is to get it to fit right inside that. I got about 1/2 inch to play with on all sides. And then after we get this going, it's making a bottom plate, which I've got some springs to help kind of hide the hole a little bit. So more to come. Obviously, main concern still structurally here. I did some cross beams on some existing construction, which you can see. I'm going to put it up here in a little bit, but I also attached some wire, a little hard to see, some wire supports here just to keep it from moving around too much. So I'll connect those once I get everything put together. All right, more to come. Should be done tonight. All right, so here's the final product. I'll show you how it goes up and down, and then I'll share with you some of the things I probably would have done differently, but basically you've got the remote here. It needs some small adjustments. It's getting caught up on some of those. So, a couple of things. I've got to make some adjustments to the opening here. I've got some little plastic rub inserts that I'll put on. I had to shrink the platform down just a little bit, shave a hair or two off on the sides. You know, these holes are never going to be perfectly square. And then as you can see, we've got the Harbor Freight winch. This is a couple of 1 2x6 and then 1 2x4. You can see that it doesn't sit right in the middle, it's back, and that's because the lines come down from the front of the rollers, and so this is about, you can kind of see where that line is, it's about in the middle. And then I've got some little lines up here just to add a little extra support. The whole thing's pretty heavy, I would say 100 pounds for the frame and everything else, so it was probably beefier than I needed. A couple of things that I probably would have done different. That winch is a 1,300 pound winch. That's probably 3 times more than I need. I'm never going to be hauling anything quite that heavy up here, but you know, I was at Harbor Freight. The difference between that one and I think the 440 pound motor was only 30 or 40 bucks, so I went ahead and just got the bigger one, but it's heavy, so definitely think about going with the lighter model. The other is I've seen quite a few versions on YouTube where they basically just take the motor and weld it to one end of the torsion bar here, and that's probably a little bit of a simpler setup. You know, I just thought it might be easier to take it, come down to another roller, and then have that kind of roll everything up. Just seems like it'd be a little stronger to do that. These are pretty big drums. You may not need these big of drums. I think this ends up being a 13-foot drop from the bar to the top of the platform. Our garage is pretty tall, so if you've got, say, a 10-foot garage, you probably can get away with the smaller little drums that are here. I use 2x6s, obviously, on the frame. That's probably more than I needed. You know, some other versions I saw you can mount the engine or the hoist on one side and run it to a couple of pulleys. If you're not hauling that much weight, you know, call it less than 100 pounds, that's probably fine. So definitely over-engineered. I'd say 2/3 of the time that I spent was on cutting out the rafter or the beam and just really making sure everything was secured. That's the part that made me the most nervous, because I've seen a lot of viewers on YouTube that just start hacking away, and I've got a pretty big run here. It's about a 23-foot run, and I've got the ladder right next to it. So there's already one beam come out here. I've got a good beam here, and then I had to cut another one out here. So I really reinforced it, tied into this big girder. There's a bedroom right here above to try to strengthen it. These are just empty boxes over there, so I'm not going to have any more weight on this side where the winch is. We're going to be hauling all of our stuff. It's kind of a mess up here right now, but hauling most of our stuff, keeping it over on the other side near the ends. I'd say all in, I probably spent between the garage door parts, the winch, the wood, and just fasteners at Home Depot, probably around $600 for everything. You could probably get away with half that. I just went a little overboard again, making sure that everything's pretty strong, but ultimately worked out pretty well. The last thing I'm going to make, and I'll shoot one last video, is what this looks like on the underside. I've got some springs, and so when this comes up, it'll have a kind of a dummy plate on the bottom of it that'll flex and kind of stay open. So I've got to clean up this opening. Those are some, as you can see, hangers right there that you saw the platform kind of getting hung up on. So I'll have to smooth that out a little bit and make some adjustments. Okay, a few final touches. Put some little rub rails on the side. That's just drip guard you can get at the roofing section. And then I'm going to put some trim to kind of match the attic ladders as well, but that's just to keep from rubbing all that drywall because it's banging a little bit on the sides. All right, there is the completed project. I painted the plywood underneath just to kind of match the ceiling and then put some trim around it. I am thinking about putting a sheet under it with some springs so as the platform raises up, it'll actually seal against it, but actually that doesn't look too bad. So for now, I'd say job done. So there's the attic lift, and there are the garage stairs. Now the trick is not to put so much stuff up here that my roof collapses. Hope you enjoyed it.